Uh, like this has been a long. It's been like almost 14 hours, I think, almost 14 hours since the chapter came out, and I was worried at first. So I initially thought, okay, the chapters are gonna be Celine Suzaku fight chapter, and then Mimi and Lucy rematch Gray and Ukune, and then back to finish off Celine and Suzaku. The only thing that kind of changed on that is there was an additional chapter with like I think it was like half of Suzaku versus Celine, and then getting into setting up the fights. And then this chapter we ended up getting the fights. So we got Lucy versus Mimi. I was unsure about the like how exactly Lucy's gonna go about it, how exactly Mimi's powers were gonna be. The only thing I did get it was either gonna be a one chapter full and then like similar to how the second Suzaku and Celine chapter was, like a chapter, like it would be a chapter and a half to maybe two chapters, ending with setting up the Gray and Hukune fight within the last few minutes. But between Lucy and Mimi, the outing, like the way that she won, it was like I figured it would be this or some new Star Dress combo, like a new Star Dress mix we could see. But I mean, like Oranometria is one of those spells where we don't get to see it a lot, but we know it's Lucy's top spell. It's her strongest outright attack. I mean, she's got a lot of utility, but I mean, she's gonna need an offensive ability. I would really like to know if she can advance like the spell, like if she can make a new like a higher end version, or if she can do different variations of essentially the exact same thing, but like either upgrade it maybe to a higher version than Oranometria, kind of like how you have Sema and you have Dusema. But yeah, I was very worried because at that last page, I was unsure exactly how that was going to be presented at first. Like, is Mimi still up? Is Lucy going to get back up? What's going on with their fight? But it looks like Mimi actually died, or not died, she fainted on her feet. So I was actually really happy about that. The only thing I would say, again, is a long going, not a super important thing, but Mimi's power, Mimi's whole like body manipulation of some degree, it's interesting. We found out a little bit more of it in this chapter. It's like when she's like using her spiritual art and she's saying that nothing can be let me see, nothing can be done through there is nothing that can be done through the power of or cannot be done. God, I'm doing real bad at it. Like to try, I'm trying real hard to get over this super easy Mimi quote of her saying like I can do anything if I I train my body with spiritual arts hard enough. And then she's like levitating and she does like this attack. She does the immovable punch or immovable fist, but adds the Mimi in there afterwards because she liked how Lucy was just adding her name in the attack to kind of like add some extra oomph into it. But the thing about it is like, she's had like some energy around it, her spiritual art ability, but I was very much hoping that we would have something more for Mimi's spiritual art. And it's not a bad one, but it's just like outside of being like a perfect counter to somebody like Lucy for the most part. He's the summoner. She was able to beat, her spirits. She was able to be more physically strong than Taurus and kind of like run through them. This time Lucy was smarter. And she seems to just be a lot more confident in herself and a lot more ready to fight. Because Lucy doesn't have a lot of fights. There are times where she's been in fights, but we haven't gotten like a for sure big fight with like one-on-one with Lucy in a long time. The closest really, besides the Mimi fights, we had the fight against Brandish, which was her mostly trying and Brandish not trying. Like Brandish very clearly holding back. We know Brandish was not putting in her all for that, because she doesn't seem to want to hurt Lucy at all. But now, this is like a solid fight. This is a good win. And not only was it a good win, it gave some a really nice moment for Mimi. So, during the fight, it's mostly just like Lucy maneuvering, doing like a lot of cool moves. Like Mimi's hitting her. You see Lucy kind of just try and regain her ground. But before she even lands, which I thought was actually really cool, and probably one of my favorite parts, aside from this one, is when she's still trying to get down. And then Mimi does another attack. She uses, I would assume, immovable Mimi chop or Mimi immovable chop. Or actually, I think she called it the sword, I think was her slash attack. But she goes, before Lucy even hits her ground, she hits her with another one of these, like, essentially a pressurized shockwave of just physical force. This is the thing of, like, when the Hulk claps. But Lucy's just doing her thing. She's being really smart with the Virgo dress. And the Virgo dress was one that I always like. I like Virgo as a character, but she was never like she never did a whole lot like fighting wise that was that valuable. She can do things that are valuable. She's like what you would want as like a battle support. Like if you were gonna say like I have 2 spirits, I only have enough to summon 1 attacker and 1 support, it would probably be either Virgo or Aries as like a really solid support, because like Aries you get the defense of her wool, but with Virgo, like when Lucy is using it to essentially pretty much just pop instantly into the ground and back out, landing attacks on Mimi, and I would guess that when she's coming back out of the ground, that she's using the the momentum to hit. Because every time we've ever seen Virgo come back out of like digging one of her holes, she's pops out. She doesn't just dig like come out, just oh yeah I'm here. She doesn't just appear. She doesn't climb out. She pops out. So there's some form of effect in her magic that forces her up while doing it. So I mean that just makes sense. Lucy doing that, using the added momentum to land hits, and just going around doing her thing. Mimi though wasn't having it. And when I say like Mimi is a really good counter to Lucy, it's in the fact that she's so physically strong. She's got a very powerful body, which is kind of the exact opposite of of summoners in general. Usually summoners, they are not nearly as durable. They're frail. They're not designed to get hit. Summoners are not designed to be in the direct battle, getting hit and whatnot. They send their minions in to do their thing, and that obviously their thing beyond that is like tactical setups, your general amount of magic, how many summons you can make, how many people you can just generally like target. But Lucy's an exception. She's kind of like how Gray is, where Gray is way more durable than he should be for an Ice Make Wizard, but that's because, Make Wizard in general, but that's because of the fact he fought with Natsu all the time for years. He fought a Dragon Slayer who's, unlike these guys, has built essentially the most durable of the types of magic. Like Dragon Slayers, regardless of their attack power or whatever their perk is, their durability is always a sound thing. Dragon Slayers have always been very durable. They're always have been able to take punches and take pain and take damage. So somebody like that, obviously not a Dragon Slayer, Mimi. It seems like Mimi's thing is just like through her spiritual art, she can just enhance her body in different ways. It only goes up to levitating apparently. So I don't know. She had a fair power, but like outside of being an opponent for Lucy, I don't really see how much of a threat she really would be. Like putting against Gray flash freezes her. Putting against Urza, I would assume Urza can just kind of chop and dice her up. Natsu can either just overpower her or fry her from the inside. And Wendy's probably would have some form of multi-set combo or figure out like how to mess with her spiritual art. I would assume Wendy's would be way more tactical than anybody else. But Mimi just having a very durable body is, again, the general opposite of what you're going to have from a summoner. So her being Lucy's opponent, it is really good. And I like that to a sense, because a summoner generally, again, you're set to send other people into battle. You're going to have all these different spirits, all these different effects. So you have the utility of it. And again, you're not the one getting in harm's way. You're having other summons. Your familiars do it for you. Whereas Mimi doesn't seem to have any hacks, anything kind of crazy about her power. She's just physical body, get in the fight, throw hands. I would have really liked to find out more about how her spiritual art works. I'm guessing maybe Mishima will keep her around, considering he decided to have her have that really cool final moment, just standing there, looking momentarily triumphant. Because that's what I was talking about earlier when I was saying how I was worried about this chapter, because I was like, well, did Lucy lose? Is she done? But then, that last comment about how Mimi was still 100 feet, even while having fainted, was really cool. I liked that a lot, and I'm hoping Mimi sticks around, because the Moonlit Beauty Gods, like the Moonlight, I always call them Moonlit Beauty Gods, but the Moonlight Beauty Gods they're in a weird spot, in terms of the story and in terms on where they're going, because with the God Seeds, though they are like almost their own characters, they are ultimately tied to Alderaan. They're parts of his body. They're extensions of his body. Whereas the Moonlight Beauty Gods are individuals. We don't know how exactly they came into service with Celine. Have they been with them for a long time? Did she pick them? How exactly is that set up? Essentially based. How exactly is that going to be? The general idea of them prior to Celine and whatnot. But where I was going with this is, will she stick around? Because the Moonlight Beauty Gods, I don't know if they're going to be like one-off villains, like one-off bad guys, or if they're going to have a longer running purpose. because with Hakune is the only one left at this point. We've already downed Yoko, we've already lost Mimi, and we know Celine does not care about these guys at all. I don't believe for a second Celine would really be that bothered by them, just based off of her whole, like, this whole set in her mind where she, like, anything that is, like, sacrifice in the way of her, you know, being entertained, being happy, and being, you know, enjoying herself, everything in the pathway that, you know, she has to take down for that, she seems fine with. As well as I would assume, you know, if she decided to just, like, oh, you know, Yoko or Mimi, they're, you know, they're pissing me off, they're getting in the way of what I want, I don't think she would have any form of real issue killing them. The only way that I could see her having any form of care about them is if Mishima does decide to keep continuing. Like the side we saw when Aquarius showed up, she had a much more compassionate, emotional kind of side of things. Not like overly emotional, but she can understand what was happening between them, and, you know, just the general emotions that was happening between Aquarius and Lucy after their reunion. So there's the maybe that she will decide to save them. I doubt it. I fully just assume that she's gonna want to kill them. But the question beyond that is, like, is she going to replace the three of them, or is she going to bring them back and maybe alter and upgrade them? What exactly is the fate of the Moonlight Beauty Gods going to be following these battles? Because it's not the same as the God Seeds, whereas the God Seeds were brought up near the final battle. It wasn't until Alderaan was up doing his thing that the God Seeds came up. You know, before that we had all the stuff that was going on with the you know, Fairy Tail members being, you know, taken over and turned against each other. We had Diablo show up and stuff, and then obviously, you know, later we ended up getting Alderaan. But with this, Selena was already here. We already have now 2 out of the 3 of her minions defeated, and I mean, this is chapter 80. I think it's 84. And it's 84 or 83. I feel like 83. So we've realistically been in this arc for like 14, 15 chapters. I would assume that this arc's going to be longer than the Alderaan arc. So, I mean, like 30, 40, maybe even 50 chapters of this arc. So if that's the case, I would really hope and expect that there to be backups for these guys. Like if like Celine was going to just be like, oh, that's fine, I can literally just grab 3 people and then power them up with my abilities to be equal to the Moonlight Beauty Gods that were there prior. I mean, that's something that is fully within her power. It wouldn't surprise me if she could do that, but we'll see exactly how that goes. Actually, really funny, because immediately as I thought of that, I thought of Rita Repulsa. You know, on moon. You know, she's not a moon-powered person, but she's on the moon. You know, having, was it Finster make monsters? I almost forgot his name for a second. I immediately remembered. I got worried for a half second. But Lucy during the Mimi fight, like, even see, like, crater impact. She gets slammed into this big, like, rock wall. It's like a little cliff, you know, some hill that was near the village. And, like, she didn't just hit it. There was a crater behind it. You see, like, all this rock shattering. She goes in for another attack. Lucy just grabs her whip, and it just kind of, like, Spider-Man swings away. And that's when her plan really kind of came into it. And I think Aquarius was, like, a really good move for her to kind of plan things. Because I remember she tried to use her water attack prior, but, it, you know, Mimi just drank it. Whereas here, she made so much water. Just this mass torrent of water. Obviously, like, we know, the spirits scale up to Lucy in terms of their strength. But then she's drinking all the water again, but this time it's way more. And she's seemingly a little bit kind of, like, I don't know about worked up, because I know people were talking about, like, the fact when she drank all the water, she had a big inflated stomach, and, you know, like, when there's some dragon times when the Dragon Eaters eat, when the Dragon Slayers eat their element and whatnot, their attribute. Natsu, obviously, is a good example. You know, they look kind of like they just ate, like, a large meal. I mean, she just drank a lot of water. She looks fine after that, but it seems more like it was a distraction, because she goes to attack Aquarius, and I was curious if Aquarius, like, what happened with Aquarius, was it because she, like, unsummoned her and she gets sent back, so, like, she turned back into water, or was turning into water a power of hers that she now has? I don't know. It'd be really weird if she suddenly had the ability to turn into water. Well, it was because Lucy's so strong now, she gained this new ability. I could see that, but I think her turning back into water, dismissing her, makes more sense. And then we peer back. She's still in her Virgo dress. She's got Gemini turned into her. What was really funny is I was thinking about Aranometria the other day, because I was making a post about it, and I realized, with Twitter, you can only have 4 pictures, and I was like, well, I'll just use all-around Ametria. She's only done it 3 times before, and then we had it the first time she used it against Angel. We had her when she used it against, tried to use it against Flare, and then when she used it against Jackal. Now we have 4, so I'm pretty happy about that one. But when it was happening, I was thinking, like, oh, Lucy wouldn't even need Gemini to use around Ametria now. She's so powerful. She might just be able to do it. But I realized, like, that's a bad idea. That's not a very good idea after I kind of mulled it over. Because the thing is, I was looking at more on a standpoint of, like, almost like a, just like a general line of progression. Like, oh, if using one-handed Ice Make was, like, an advanced way of doing it instead of doing it properly. You an upgraded variation of what you already had. So I was like, okay, well, maybe she should be fine just casting it by herself. But the thing is, even if she could, why would she want to? Unless this was like, I only have enough magic left for 1 attack, this is all I can do, kind of thing. Sure, but I realized how bad of an idea that really is when it was like, well, why did she use Gemini in the first place? Because, she has Gemini turn into her, then you essentially have 2 of, like, her amount of Ether Nano, her amount of magic is doubled. So, at that point, why would you just not want to have Gemini? Because it's like, I assume she could cast it by herself. I don't know why she wouldn't be able to. But it's like, even if she cast it by herself, if she just summoned Gemini to literally just do the exact same thing she did, nothing extra, they don't have to do more steps. But if she just summoned Gemini, turned into her like this, it's double the power. You have twice as much magic to use. So it just makes sense to me. Yeah, like, it was really weird because I was thinking it more, again, from the standpoint of kind of like how Lucy doesn't have to use her keys anymore. So it's like, well, maybe she can just, drop Ametria fully fine on her own outright. Which actually is funny because, like, this chapter shows that Metria is a bigger drain than the Star Dresses and bigger attacks. Because the first time she used Star Dresses, like, she used the one against Mira Jane, Elfman, and Lizana, and then she used it against the, at least for Drasil, used it against the big wood golem that Metro summoned. And she used those, and she, obviously, like, that was it. She could only use one of her big attacks from those. But then when we saw her against all the yokai, she had all of her spirits out, she had Stardust Mix, and she went into her, big attack. Was it Leon Maiden? Used that, and then still had her spirits out for the rest of the fight. Next time we saw her, she wasn't in her Stardress form, but the amount of magic she clearly used was enough to make her collapse in this chapter. So if she's able to use it, like her Lion Maiden, while having all 12 spirits up, while maintaining 10 spirits. Well, 11 if you count Plu, but we don't want to count Plu. But, well, actually, 9 if you don't count Aquarius. I still have, my idea that Aquarius and her are still relatively good, and she could still summon her, sort of, but she just still has a broken key. But I'll just say 9. 9 spirits, then goes Stardress, then uses an attack from Stardress that prior made her collapse, and still has the spirits out, so she's still good on magic. Whereas here, she did a couple of pretty much just a couple of Stardress swaps, and then some melee attacks. Like, she didn't do a whole lot of magic in this fight. But that's one of the things I liked about it as well. Probably one of my favorite parts about the chapter entirely is Lucy, again, like I said, she didn't focus entirely on using her magic. She was, using her magic while maneuvering, as I messed up the word so bad, but maneuvering, and then just generally, setting up her attacks. So I thought that was just a better, clear sign of her own intelligence and her own ability to actually, like, fight, and not just kind of like she's whipping people and throwing summons. But yeah, I really did like the way that the fight went. It was good, but it was simple, but it wasn't something that made it seem like it was the big fight of the arc. This isn't Lucy's big grand battle for Elantir. This was just Lucy having a good fight, getting revenge, getting her W, getting her win, on her opponent. And I did really like when she set up the whole distraction with Aquarius. And here she is already just setting up Gemini, having Metria, and just blasts Mimi, just completely takes her out. But like I said, she has as much strain using Metria here as she did when prior to using Stardress Mix, where Stardress Mix isn't the problem anymore. So clearly, when you look at current Elantir, current Lucy, Metria takes more magic than her Stardress Mix right now with the attack. Because otherwise, she would have dropped down. She wouldn't be in the form. I know she was in the form, but she was still fighting, still had spirits up, so magic was still present. Anyway, but Mimi Man, I really liked Mimi's end. Like, Mimi's last panel, she's standing there. She's covered with all the steam and smoke. And I was worried at that point. And her last words, Mimi the immovable. She's still on her feet. She's not going down. And Lucy seemed worried for a second, and then, looks back, and she's like, she fainted even while she's standing. She's still up. She has not gone down. And I genuinely like that. I thought that was really cool. That was a good finisher for their fight. And it left a good spot for Mimi in the future, because Mimi so far hasn't done anything evil, and Mimi hasn't done anything wicked. So I would assume that Mimi is somewhat good. So, like, maybe not like, I mean, I guess, like, she would have to be somewhat good, really, at this point, to, like, not just be, like, killing people. Like, she hasn't shown any tendencies to be evil. It's more that she just works with Selene. But I feel like if Selene essentially ruled your world, and you would know that you're not even close to powerful enough to do anything, you're just going to go with it and hope that you survive and hope that you can make the best out of it. I would assume, like, Selene is so much more powerful than any of them. So, I mean, like, yeah, because, I mean, Suzaku would have ran right through Mimi. It would have been, yeah, you didn't see the sword resheathed dead. So that's mostly it for this chapter. I did really like the combat. I really liked that Lucy was showing that she knew how to fight, she knew how to move around, she knew how to take hits, and she knew how to strategize. That is one of the bigger things as well, is strategy. It's because it's not like for the other guys. Like, the other guys have, everybody strategizes really in a fight. Unless your character is confirmed not thinking, then you're going to be strategizing to some degree. But Lucy's whole thing in the main cast is she's the smartest, so I would hope that she would be at least somewhat tactical. Granted, she's never been shown to be like some battle tactician, but I do think that her general level of intelligence should give her an edge in a lot of scenarios. I don't know. I mean, I would assume if she's smarter than opponent, and with her big moveset, a big variety of abilities, that she would be, a force to be reckoned with. Anyway, I am excited for the Gray stuff. I really do want to figure out what Gray's advanced magic is. I really want to see Gray get a good moment and to hopefully really not make up, because I know people have been clowning on Gray for the fact that he hasn't had like any new fights or well, he's had some fights, but nothing really. I mean, he like lost to Scullion, lost to Hakune and stuff. But I mean, with Hakune, I mean, yeah, that was unfair. Like, you wouldn't, unless you knew what her power did and she got you with it, you're mostly screwed unless you're like some physical monster. But Gray definitely needs to have a good moment. Lucy's was great. I really liked it. I liked it more than I thought I was gonna like it. And I think really the reason that is because we saw Lucy just moving. She's on the move. She's whipping around, getting everywhere, making sure that she's not getting beat. But even when she's getting hit, she's withstanding it. Again, that's good. That shows her level of skill, shows her level of durability, shows her fighting capability, and she's not just like in the background. And I'll always appreciate that about Lucy. She's not going to be just standing around doing nothing. So during all this part, I was hyped. Even Mimi knew that she wasn't going to be able to do anything about Rhodometria. And it looks like she knew that she also wasn't going to be able to move properly because she just drank all that water. She's all bloated. And then, bam, Rhodometria comes in, cleaves her, and just completely fries her. And then, end of the chapter, she's still on her feet. Lucy was the one still conscious, so it's definitely a victory on her. Mimi on her feet doesn't mean anything if she's unconscious. So, I mean, like, right now, Lucy could probably, in the idea that because it doesn't show that she's unconscious. So, I mean, if it was a deathmatch, Lucy would, like, just jump up, I don't know, and stab her in the throat or something. But anyway, other than that, actually, I would really like to know, before I end that video, it's like, I really want to know if Mimi says in the next chapter she's out of Superior. I think it'd be really cool to see, like, one of these guys just like, oh man, I've ran out of, this energy source. Because, like, Magic, we've seen the characters run out with them. We never saw anything with Curse Power about the same thing of, like, oh man, I ran out of Curse Power, time to throw hands. But with Superior, I think it'd be really cool to see the spiritual art side of things and see exactly how gathering the power and using it for their abilities works. I really wish Mimi gave us that, because Mimi's, I think, would be really easy to do with just like how simple her power seems to be. Maybe we'll get that after these fights, take them hostage or something. I don't know. Either way, it was a pretty good chapter. I'd say really good, and especially, I mean, it was probably like top tier if you're like a huge Lucy stan. I really like Lucy, so I was very happy with it. And I've got a lot of highs and hopes for her in this arc, so we'll see exactly how that goes and exactly what exactly Mishima's plan with her is. I would assume that she's going to play a big role, and just based off of like the amount of extra time she's gotten already within this arc. But I know that's a wait for another day. Next time though, we're getting the Gray fight. Got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping so bad Gray can get like a really cool either new form or a new power to his ice. I would assume that his his devil slaying transcended. It would be a further progressed version. A horn of sorts, maybe a claw, maybe an additional power. I don't know. Anyway, other than that, I'll comment below. Thumbs up the video, front the like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.